interrupt our scheduled programming with breaking news reports coming in from around the globe.
That's right, from America to the Caribbean, from West Africa to Europe, people are awakening to the truth about who the true chosen people of the Bible are.
Our field reporters have put together some recent testimonials from various individuals. The story may challenge your perspective.
So I'm going to tell you what's going on in America right now, but most of y'all are not going to like this. We are literally in a let my people go moment. Moses versus Pharaoh. I'm talking about plagues and all. Because after 400 years of oppression and marginalization, the black community rose up in 2020 to demand justice from Pharaoh. It came with a plague called COVID that left over 1 million people dead. Still, we did not listen. Instead, we hardened our hearts. So more plagues have followed. The second plague was the big lie, the loss of truth. The third plague was January 6th, the loss of the rule of law. The fourth plague, the plague of tariffs, the loss of economic stability. And the fifth plague, the plague of ICE raids, the loss of human dignity and decency. Our economy is shrinking. Our global standing in the world is diminishing. Our rights are being eroded every single day. And it's going to get worse and worse and worse until we listen to the voice of the black community calling for justice. Let my people go. And remember, those people didn't go away empty-handed. The Bible says they plundered the Egyptians, asking for silver and gold. So don't forget, the wealth transfer is part of the deal.
Might hurt some feelings, but guess what? The black people living in the Americas are the chosen people of God. Shalom. My name is Ronette Brooks, and before I get started, I want to say all praises to the Most High. I am a Gentile. And it is very important because I know that Israelites that are in the truth and know who they are going to be hearing my voice. This is not about me, but I do want you to know enough about me that you can know a small piece of my heart. I have known who so-called African Americans are in the United States since 2019. The Most High allowed me to know that they were the tribe of Judah. I've learned since then that it might be some Benjamites in there and some Levites, but all I want to say is I am here with a humble heart, and I am infinitely in awe because I know that I'm speaking to the light of the world.
All right, I'm going to stop her right there. How does her and people like her know that we are the children of Israel, but you don't know that? How does she know we are the light of the world, but you don't know that? How does she know that if you're out here condemning people to hell, you're going to end up right in that same pit with them? But you don't know that. I want y'all to think of it. Wake up! Berean scholar. Berean scholar. Waking up the people of the Most High. Got the knowledge to destroy the lies. DNA history, open eyes. Walk into the darkness and turn on the lights. Wake up, 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 wake up.
Warning, the following video are for commentary purposes only. Fair use.
What Edmund Spencer said, we bring this up every once in a while. There is a principle which is a bar against all information. It's a proof against all argument, which cannot fail to keep man in everlasting ignorance.
Which cannot fail to keep man in everlasting ignorance.
That principle is condemnation before investigation. What I'm going to ask you to do as we go into this session tonight is to set aside whatever you may have been taught or whatever you believe and try to look at it with fresh eyes and try to hear what the text is saying. And my goal is not to sell you a particular view. My goal is to equip you to do your own homework, to do your own digging and come to your own conclusions. So the same concept is in Proverbs 18:13. He that answereth a matter before he heareth it is a folly and a shame unto him. So set aside what prejudices you may have.
Message.
All right, welcome Welcome, family. Welcome, March Bakar. I want to welcome you to tonight's live, and I hope everybody's doing well. We're going to get right into the topic at hand. Let me see, can I get this off the screen? Yes. Israelites in the early Americas. Israelites in the early Americas. I know some of you, like myself, have heard many people talk about us being the indigenous people of this land. If you've heard that yourself in some of the discussions between our people, please put a 1 in the chat, because I've heard it several times. In fact, I was talking to one of my teammates I used to play ball with when I was in college, and he said, "I don't believe that slavery ever happened. I think we were indigenous. We was here before, you know." And there's some things that you can say that lead them to believe that, but that's not the whole truth. That is not the whole truth. And tonight, I hope to give you some tools to be able to tell people the truth about that. As always, I think I have a guest online with me. In fact, I have a couple, my same two guests. I think Sister Kara's already in the house. Look at all the ones we got so far. We got hey Elder, how you doing? Shalom, Shalom. Glad you're here. She said she heard the same thing. Daily Repentance said she heard the same thing. Yeah, Jonathan said he heard the same thing. I'm getting a lot of ones. Everybody's hearing the same thing. My brother, Woke Yoshua's in the house. Glad to see you, brother. My brother, Pine Hill Production is in the house. I might have dropped the link for you, brother. So yeah, we all heard this thing, and we're going to talk about tonight. Sister Carol, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
And I know that I can hear you fine. I know you heard the same thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I have family who have indigenous tribal connection to the country, but I trace my roots and I know for a fact where I came from.
That was funny. Most of us growing up in the South, those who the good hair, bad hair thing we had all the time, and everybody kept saying, I got good hair because I got Indian in me.
Got that Indian, got that Indian hair. Yeah.
We used to say that. I remember that, but it's funny how when you pull back the covers of what they taught us in school with his story and find the true history, and leave his story alone, you'll see a lot of things that man, it blew my mind when I first realized some of these stuff. And tonight we're gonna get into a little bit. I was doing some studies, and I saw a documentary. The gentleman you see on the screen right now, let me see, I didn't even put our faces up. The gentleman you see on the screen right now is got his name, but he'll introduce me this documentary, and we're gonna do commentary to this documentary. So just to let you know, this is fair use, and we're gonna talk about this documentary and several other. So let's get into it. Okay, the sound's not working.
Yeah, because I can't hear it either. I thought it was just me. I had to go to my pad.
Let me check on that. Give me one moment, folks. I am sorry, but we'll get that fixed. And let's see. Let's try it in this. It might be our friendly neighborhood web providers. You know what I mean? Because I think it was working in the browser. You spend a lot of time getting together and know they got everything right. Then you go to get live and say, wait a minute, what did they do? Here we go. Let's see what it sounds like here. Okay, I hear it on this side.
I don't hear it all.
You don't hear anything.
Mm-mm. Let me listen to my pad. I can hear my pad. No, I don't hear it on my pad either. Do you guys hear it in the chat? Type of 1 if you hear, type of 2 if you don't. Okay.
See, I checked it inside, but it does have.
You sharing the sound? Want to share?
Can you hear it now?
Very low.
Okay, let's go again. I see what's going on. Let's try now. If we get past this, then I know what's wrong.
The history that we were all taught growing up
Now?
is wrong.
Yes.
My name is Scott Wolter, and I'm a forensic geologist. There's a hidden history that nobody knows about. There are pyramids, chambers, tombs, inscriptions. They're all over the world. We're going to investigate these artifacts and sites, and we're going to get to the truth. Sometimes history isn't what we've been told.
Now, the just to let you know, this guy has a whole program, and I did put the link to this video in the commentary. I mean, in the description of this video. So if you want to see the whole video, because he does a lot of more diggings, and he's going and investigating these sites that have been found here in the Americas, all from all parts of North America, down in New Mexico, and he'd also point out some there down in Mexico. So but I'm gonna just talk about a couple. Let's go ahead.
As a forensic geologist, I rely on the study of rocks to learn more about our own history. And throughout my career, there have been several artifacts that I constantly return to. One of them is called the Bat Creek Stone. Though small in size, it's considered one of archaeology's biggest mysteries. I first learned about it during an unrelated investigation back in 2008. I was examining some cave inscriptions with a woman named Leslie Kalin when she told me about the stone and how it's inscribed with strange writing. I was immediately intrigued and had to know more. The Bat Creek Stone was discovered back in 1889 in a Native American burial mound in Loudoun County, Tennessee, along with jewelry and 9 human skeletons. The writing on the stone was first thought to be a form of Cherokee script. Later, it was determined to be an ancient form of Hebrew. Why would a stone with Hebrew writing be buried in a Native American mound? After years of research, a possible connection began to emerge. Could the stone be an ancient Hebrew land claim, possibly from the Lost Tribes of Israel? The Lost Tribes of Israel are 10 tribes that disappeared from the Holy Land in 722 BC after the Assyrians waged a bloody battle against them. To this day, no one knows if they died, escaped, or assimilated into the population.
Now, that video got me to thinking, especially when I saw this. If you see the description in the stone, right here,
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it and said, wait a minute, that's Paleo-Hebrew. So that is Hebrew. And this is found here in the United States. So I got to looking. I'm going to pull this up. Tell me you can see my my slide on the stage, Sister Carol.
Okay. Not yet.
I ain't got but like 2,500
Slides.
windows open. Just 2,500. All right. Can you see that right here?
I see. Yeah.
All right. I got to look at it about this because this was it intrigued me about the migration of the Israelite from the Assyrian exile to northern Africa to Mali. Because if those of you know about the different exile, that one was one of the biggest ones because it was the whole northern kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people that after they came out of that exile, they have been noted. There's several scholars and several books that tells you about our people traveling down to northern Africa, some in the Iberian Peninsula, an area like that. They also went down towards Mali and Timbuktu. So when I saw the Back Creek Cave here in the United States, I said, it's got to be a connection between those two.
Right.
Now, this is Paleo-Hebrew. So I went through to look for myself even before they did to see what it says, because if you look at this right here, although it's not there, this is the Qua.
Mm-hmm.
This is the law. And this right here is Wahayada.
Yes. Correct.
For Judah, Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what Native American that we call indigenous people was writing for Judah on a stone? Think about that.
Interesting.
And I put out in sounds in case you didn't know, maybe he'd be the Kuala Wada. And then I'm gonna play the rest of the video, this mark right here, like he started to make something. This is a saw. He used to have 3 mark, but you see it's just a dot here, and he stopped. So but he said he calls it something else. But to me, and I checked with somebody, that's definitely somebody was making a saw. So that's a saw. In fact, he was getting ready to write something else, but he didn't. So, and just to let you know, I put a chart up so you see these signs where I got them from. But let's go on with some more of the videos, and then we'll come back. Now I know why I took out the music because of copyright.
Right.
So that's why it was just silent.
Okay, that's why. Okay, that makes sense now. I thought it was me again.
No, I thought it was me. But when they talk.
On my way to the McClung Museum, I can't stop thinking about what Leslie said. As a scientist, I focus on facts, but in this case, I can't ignore the oral tradition. If some Cherokee people believe they're connected to the lost tribes of Israel, maybe there's something to it.
Here it is. Just got it fresh off the exhibit for you.
I'm really excited to look at the Bat Creek stone with the new technology, this Keon's 3D microscope, that's going to hopefully help answer the question, is it authentic or not?
And that's part of why you're studying it. There is some controversy about the stone.
Can you give me just a brief synopsis as you understand the history of the Bat Creek stone?
Yeah, I mean, it has a very interesting history. It was part of the Smithsonian's Bureau of Ethnology's mound survey that Cyrus Thomas was leading to try to understand what they call at the time the mystery of the mound builders, of who actually built these things. And one of those excavations was done in Loudoun County, Tennessee, at the intersection of Bat Creek with the Little Tennessee River. And they excavated a couple of mounds there, and one of them was a burial mound where they actually found the Bat Creek stone.
A scientist named Cyrus Thomas was in charge of the mound survey. Initially, he thought the mounds were the work of some advanced race which no longer existed. Eventually, he went on record with his belief that the Cherokee people were somehow connected to the prehistoric mound builders. Some critics believe John Emmer, the field archaeologist working on the project who found the Bat Creek stone, may have planted the artifact to get in good with his boss. I've studied the...
Now, it's funny when they find stuff in antiquities that points to us, our people, those of melanated descent. It got to be somebody else from extraterrestrial or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They come and give the so-called Native Americans any credit. It had to be somebody else. Nobody else have intelligence to write.
Of course. You got to keep you got to keep the agenda, the narrative going.
But when this archaeologist found the stone, he went to find out to make sure it's authenticated. And I'm going to let you show how you authenticate it. Then we're going to go to our next step.
Bat Creek stone once, but now I'm back in Tennessee to examine it with the latest technology. If I can figure out how old the carvings are on the stone using 3D analysis, it would go a long way towards solving the Lost Tribes mystery. I want to show you something here that I think is pretty important. This is the very first picture taken of the Bat Creek stone, 1894. If you look in this area right here, there are no scratches.
Right.
But
now, I hope you saw that. We just showed that the original picture had no scratches in the corner. Pay attention.
in this 1971 photograph, you can see there are 2 scratches.
Added scratches.
Clearly, they were added after the stone was found.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on why that might have happened or how that may have happened?
Well, I mean, there's 2 things that could happen. Could have been accidentally scratched in some form or fashion, or it could be somebody trying to do some sort of early testing before 3D imaging to see what it's made of and how easy it is to scratch and things like that. We will do some test scratches like that sometimes.
What's important about this is these serve as excellent control samples for me to compare with the original inscription to see if they're the same.
Hopefully this machine can tell us some more today.
We start by examining the modern scratch. I'm not sure if this mark was made accidentally or on purpose. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that this scratch may be able to help prove the authenticity of the Bat Creek stone. When they scratch the stone, it will generate secondary material that's left behind. And we see that here in the freshly scratched surface. Whenever you scratch a stone, you leave stuff behind, deposits from making the mark. The fact that we see residue in this microscopic view speaks to the fact that this is a recent carving. Because we're looking at a recent scratch, it would make sense some of that material is still there. No polish marks.
Clearly rough. I mean, it's something that was intentional, but not to be beautiful.
Yes. So let's take a look at the original inscription. If it was fresh like the scratch, we would see secondary material in there, and we don't see that. Well, as you can see here, we don't have any of those deposits that we saw on the fresh scratch. They're completely gone. It's clean as a whistle. It's completely weathered away. The weathering is key because to get that weathering profile took time. We've got nice rounded edges, and the polished surface looks nothing like the fresh scratch.
Right.
In Emmert's notes, the first time he mentions the stone, he said it was a polished stone. You can see the scratches going into the grooves after it was carved. So clearly that indicates the inscription was carved first, then it was polished. The inscription on the Bat Creek stone was clearly polished, unlike those new scratches, which weren't polished at all.
Now, was two different scratches. One was a test scratch. One was a scratch that was original, and he authenticated that this was ancient. So this came back when the tribes actually put this carving in this stone. I saw what somebody put in check. They wanted what they used to carve. Me too, but you could tell it was so old that the traces of what they used was not there anymore. So
I'm sure it's probably other rocks.
Probably another rock, or
Mm-hmm.
but that led me from there to, okay, I want to look up and see some resources. So I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
pull up where I went to next. I'm gonna let you guys follow the same trail I went to. Let's see, stop. Give me a second. Here we go. Trying to find your old friend.
My friend, no.
Yeah, your old friend.
No.
No.
Who I think it is.
No, it's not who you think it is.
Okay, good.
This friend.
Oh,
Claude.
yes. Oh, yes. I'm talking to him right now, matter of fact.
I went to Claude and said, hey, okay, Claude, you heard about the Back Creek Stone and everything?
Yes,
and
I just got
Claude,
to talking to him.
You was asking the same question, huh?
Uh-huh.
So it went and found the Back Creek Stone and found other sites, like in fact, these other sites are going to be mentioned in this film, like the Lunas Decalogue Stone, which they have the stone found in New Mexico that has the Ten Commandments written in Paleo Hebrew script. I'm gonna make this big so you can see it, guys. Can you see it, sis?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. This Newark Holy Stone in Ohio, and it's just from 1860s, a cluster of ancient Indian burial mounds. It has some stone bowls and other sand boxes that has Hebrew strips on it. Pixfield Phylactery in Manchester, and it has a actual scroll they found in that area in the mound. This was in 1815. So I went through and started finding some of the stuff, and there's several other, and we're gonna see some of them. And it gave me a list of them down here, and it gave me some terms that they found on some of the stones. But I saw this one right here. What did I say to you, sis? This is Hebrew. It's a Catawba. Catawba. I said, wait a minute. Now, for me, that's personal. I said, Catawba, what did that mean? So I had to ask it, what does this mean in the Catawba saying? And the word in Lashwan Kodesh, that's my studies about ancient Hebrew. It says it's a writing itself, to write or engrave, to cut into, inscribe. That's what it's saying, that they wrote Catawba, to say they was describing their history, their laws, whatever. And I said, wow. So they used that word. And I said, wait a minute. I lived in a area where the county was called Catawba, North Carolina. Those of you from North Carolina, are you familiar with Catawba, North Carolina? I know we got some people online here who probably drove through Catawba, North Carolina. That's near the Piedmont area, right? North of Charlotte. So after going down and look at some of the, I'm not gonna give you all the details, but the important one that got me calling somebody else up, the Back Creek clays had a physical evidence that of Catawba. Instead of Catawba, that's mean writing in the inscribing. That's, he kept using that term. I asked it. The reason I'm asking because there's a tribe of Indian called the Catawba Indians, and I wondered, was there some connection? This is a sharp research instinct, yeah. And then it went back and told me about the Catawba Indians. They're known originally as the name of Catawba. The members were of the Sia Yi Ishwa, meaning the people of the river. But Catawba, but Catawba also sounds like something else. Because I kept diving into the Hebrew part of it. It said it meant the people of the river, but what Catawba is almost like sound like. I'm gonna go ahead and still up. Catawba to be Kadashah is the same name as Kadashah, Catawba. It Kadashah meaning to be, you know what Kadashah mean? Kadashah mean to be set apart. Isn't it say no Catawba? And it says so. That means could they be related? Could they be part of the tribe that they study? The Back Creek Stone was found in Tennessee, where I'm from is close to Tennessee, but is at the foot of the mountains. Is in North Carolina. Tennessee is nothing but a 7-hour drive from us. But so I said, did they had some relation? So I called my old friend. And I asked Pastor Cal, I said, "Hey, you heard anything about the Indians in the Americas being Hebrew?" He said, "Yeah." He's telling me several books. He said, "Look up James Adair." If anybody heard of James Adair, he wrote a book, "The History of the American Indians." So I wanted to look up James Adair. That led me down a big rabbit hole. You talking about open up a whole new cane. In fact, this is how Pastor Kelsey, I'm not gonna tell you, just look up James Adair, tell me what you find. Because I should know he was leading me into something.
Right.
So let's listen to a little bit about James Adair.
All right, so this is written by James Adair, Esquire, a trader with the Indians and resident in their country for 40 years. Observations and arguments improve of the American Indians being descended.
Just in case you didn't hear that, this man's lived with the Indians in the Americas for over 40 years. He didn't just study them; he lived with them, moved around, trade. He was there writing for 40 years.
An Indian. All right, so this is written by James Adair, Esquire, a trader with the Indians and resident in their country for 40 years. Observations and arguments improve of the American Indians being descended from the Jews. All right. Again, we're in the book, A History of the American Indian by James Adair. A number of particulars present themselves in favor of a Jewish descent. But to form a true judgment and draw a solid conclusion, the following arguments must not be partially separated, rather, let them be distinctly considered, and then unite them together and view their force collectively. Argument 1. As the Israelites were divided into tribes and had chiefs over them, so the Indians divide themselves. Each tribe forms a little community within the nation, and as the nation has its particular symbol, so has each tribe the badge from which it is denominated. The Sakhem of each tribe is a necessary party in conveyances and treaties.
So he went through in his book and he has 17 arguments that he feel shows that these Indians have Hebrew or Israelite roots. So I said, okay, who is this guy? Who is James Adair? Let's listen to this.
Oh, now we're in this book. It's called The History of the American Indian. All right. And again, and it says here, particularly those nations adjoining to the Mississippi, East and West Florida, Georgia, South and North Carolina, and Virginia, contain an account of their origin, language, manners.
So what?
Is it playing? Because I can't hear it.
You can't hear it at all?
No.
Religious, civil customs laws,
Explain
form
them.
of government punishments,
If you can hear it,
conduct in
guys,
war,
give me a 1.
domestic
If you
life, their
can't, give me a
habits,
2.
diet, agriculture,
I can hear my
manufacturers,
pad.
disease.
I can hear my phone.
Domestic life, diet, agriculture.
I can hear my pad. I can hear my phone.
Okay, I hear echo in yours. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm giving 1, so I think they can hear it online. So I'm gonna go ahead and let it play.
And methods of cure and other particulars sufficient to render it a complete Indian system with observations on former historians, the conduct of our colony governors, superintendents, missionaries. All right, so this is written by James Adair, Esquire, a trader with the Indians and resident in their country for 40 years. James Adair lived with them for 40 years. You think he'd learn something from them or notice something from them? So let's see what he has to say. All right, so real quick before I continue with the book, I just wanted to talk about who James Adair was, so you can know exactly what we're reading, and then who his views, why he has his views in this book, right? So it says here in this book, Biographical Dictionary, projected in part of your reign, so by Reverend Hugh James Rose, Principal of King's College, London, Volume 1, this was written in 1857, all right? And it says here in the book, under James Adair, right, it says, a trader with the Indians of the southern states. He resided in their country for 40 years. Again, 40 years. First-hand account, all right? First-hand account, his experience with them, all right? Beginning in 1735 and was almost entirely cut off from civilized society. And from the year 1744, he resided chiefly among the Chickasaws. He published a very elaborate work on their manners, endeavoring to prove them descended from the Jews. So his whole book, and I read that he was persuaded by Benjamin Franklin to go ahead and write it after conversating with him in London, that he wrote it again, right, to prove that the Indians, well, at least the ones he was around in those 40 years, to prove that they descended from the Jews, or Hebrews, not Jews, right, Hebrews, or what they call Hebrews, or the people they write about in the Old Testament, right? It's not what you call yourself. But we just got to use these tags, right, so we can know, so we can reference what we're talking about here. So it is entitled The History of the American Indian. Encyclopedia Alabama, says James Adair, author what is arguably the most...
Now I'm using this source because he gave clear sources that I was able to go back and look at myself. So I'm doing this where you could do the same thing, where he look up to find out who James Adair is. So
significant, the most significant 18th century work on the southeastern Indians. The History of the American Indians, published in London in 1775. The book, a cultural and historical study of the Catawba.
Boom.
Oh my, Catawba.
When I saw that, I said, "Oh, okay, I was right." Catawba was one of the tribes he stayed with. That's the area I lived in. Let's continue.
Catawba family out there, Cherokee family, Creek, Choctaw, and Chickasaw.
Now wait, Sister Carol, then you said you had some family that had Cherokee.
No, they thought they had Blackfoot, but really it was Seminole, because the Seminoles, after the Trail of Tears, left Florida, came to Oklahoma, and then they continued from Oklahoma down in Texas,
And that's
and on down from Texas
another
down to
trail.
Mexico.
The Seminole is another trail where we can track our people to the Seminole tribe, and a lot of we'll talk about that at the end. So remind me at the end.
Okay.
Family out there listening. He lived amongst your ancestors for 40 years. So can we trust what he's writing about how they lived? Again, so a study of all these nations, right, which is based on Adair's first-hand observation, derived from his 40-year career as a thin-skinned trader among several southeastern Indian tribes. Naming this book A Nation Now Extinct, American Indian Origin, Theories as of 1820 by Samuel Mitchell and Martin Harris. And it says here, by far the most persuasive of all Americans to defend the Lost Tribes theory was the historian and anthropologist James Adair. A historian and anthropologist. He wasn't just a trader. He knew what he was talking about. who follow in the tradition of the great French-Canadian missionary Pierre Francoeur Chilevaux, spent 40 years among the American Indians. In his History of the American Indians, Adair was perhaps the first to argue less on biblical grounds and more on scientific basis that the Indians had originated from the Jewish stock. Refuting the pre-Adamite theory, he believed that the Indians have lineally descended from Adam. Adair carefully observed the Indian cultures, their rites, festivals, religious ceremonies.
Now, when I first heard that, I didn't understand that, but in looking at some of the background during that time where Adair was, there were a lot of people like James Smith in that area. James Smith, who was with the Mormon church, was teaching that the Indian were from somebody else, not from Adam. The Indian and us were not from Adam. So he was saying, nope, they were from Adam. But this, and that's you can see why he said it in a little bit.
The monotheistic beliefs in the one God of the Great Spirit, the reckon of time, the traditions of sacred men and prophets, the levirate marriages, the reckon of time, the traditions of sacred men, anointism, purification ceremonies, and other practices and beliefs. Historio-anthropological observation, systematic research, and comparative analysis were certainly impressive, even if later scholars disagreed with him. Adair infused the lost stripes theory with scientific foundation it had sorely lacked. So, science behind this. All right, so we come back to this book, A Genealogical History.
And I was saying, why did you go to here to find about James Adair? The book is Jewish, Muslim, in British colonies in America.
Jews and Muslims in British colonial America. I know I've read this already. A lot of you don't know who I was talking about when I said John Adair, so now you know a little bit more, right? And I'm just going to read to you again something they leave out of all that information we just read about him, right? Him being a trapper and all this stuff, and he's Irish and all this other stuff. What they leave out was just something very, very important, which is something we are overstanding and learning as we do our research, as we continue this journey of learning, digging up, what the truth may be. The more factual history is that James Adair and most of the original colonists of the Americas coming from Europe were actually Jews and Muslims, with them Sephardic Jews and Muslims, cryptos, conversos, new Christians, coming in with their titles as Protestants, Irish, English. But these were cryptos, secret Jews, secret Muslims. A lot of them had been in their countries for many, many years, 2-3 generations. But originally, this is what they were. But real quick, on page 136 of this book.
Now, we talked about cryptos earlier, several months ago, and there were the people who were act like they converted, but they didn't.
Right.
And these people were part of the first people coming to explore this area during the initial colonization of this country, and a lot of cryptos came over. Now, that was a good thing, also was a bad thing, because people like James Adair came on with a good intention, because he heard some of the same thing that Columbus heard. And we're going to get into Columbus a little bit later. But he heard the same thing that Columbus heard. So he came in looking for signs that his people were here.
It says here, not to belabor the subject, we list other
And
Maryland
we also have to
names.
remember that the Moors were seamen. So they knew how to sail around these continents. And they came here several times and settled here prior to us coming here.
The Moors was seamen, and it was, I forgot which tribe was also seamen. The tribe of Israel was seamen too, because that was the one that King Solomon used to bring all the gold stuff from us. And I'm trying to remember which tribe it was.
I can't remember either.
It's a card. But anyway, but let's go on.
Taught to be possibly Sephardic or Moorish in Appendix I1 or I by way of conclusion. Let us glance at one of those. Adair, Hebrew name for a month. Adair is Hebrew, Jewish, right? To illustrate a common path to the extreme western frontier, taken by settlers landed in Maryland. One of the authors termed this the Great Melungeon Migration. The reason for this rush to the wilderness do not seem to be the same as those offered commonly by historians such as Alan Taylor. That is the desire of the small freeholder to avoid taxation by moving gradually beyond the reach of the authorities. And a lot of these people are being persecuted in the first place, and that's why they came to America, by the Catholics, and they're being persecuted. So when they got here, they still had to keep it moving. You know, some of them, so a lot of them ended up in these places where it happens to be Melungeon territories, right? We already know about the Melungeons, right? And this place, the Watuga, I got a future video on this.
Now, how many heard of the Melungeon? Have you heard of Melungeon, sis? The Melungeon.
No, I had not heard of them.
Melungeon is the group of people that live in the Appalachian Mountains that are very, they look mixed. They're dark skinned. Well, they try to pass as white, but they're dark skin, dark hair. And so most people thought they were either mixed between Indians and white or slaves and white. They didn't know. But he's saying that some of these tribes that he thought was according to his tribe, if you didn't pick up, James Adair was a Israelite himself who came from the Ireland Peninsula from Spain. When he came over, he was one of the ones that came on with the Moors and came over here to explore. So he knew what he was looking for.
Correct.
So
because
he was one of us.
to that point, King James came from Ireland and Scotland. Remember, he was king of Scotland as well as England, and he was an Israelite.
So this is showing you that our people are trying to connect dots, and this stuff is left for us to find these breadcrumbs. So when I found about James Adair doing it, I said, okay, he came because he knew that people were over here. Well, who else, and why? And why do we have so many people trying to tell us that we're indigenous to this area? How did they get here? So I'm now it's gonna look like I'm jumping around. If I lose you, let me know. Put it in chat. But we're gonna find out a little bit more. In the beginning, I told you about the exile from 722 BC, the exile from Syria, and most people spread all over. They went to, like you said, the Iberian Peninsula. They went to northern Africa. People went down as far as Mali, even to Timbuktu. The writer from Babylon to Timbuktu mentioned that migration and talked about that migration in detail.
Yes, he did.
Let me pull this up. I'm
That,
talking
that
about
I do that I do remember. Yes.
So if you guys want to find some writing about, I'm gonna put this on the screen. Here we go. Yeah. Here we go. Should be up on the screen now. So, Mr. Rudolph Windsor wrote about the migration. Now, he said that our people migrated after the 722 BC from the northern kingdom. They left the 10 tribe, primarily Assyrian deportation to Mesopotamia. But after they left, they were freed, they went all over. So there is another book that I did not get, and it's a writing from a they say Jewish. I don't like using the word Jewish, but he was an Israelite trader. They're in Morocco, and I forgot the name of it, but I didn't get the chance to get that book before we got started. But he's the documented source that they were in Morocco, but they also went down to Mali. Now, why is Mali important? Mali, how many in chat have heard of Mansa Musa? Anybody heard of Mansa Musa in Mali?
Yes.
The richest person ever. Now, and I found out another point about Mansa Musa that I didn't know, and most people don't talk about in history, but Mansa Musa was a good thing because it shows how many people, how many else, there's so many kingdoms that thrived in Africa way before the other people got there. and he was one of the people who is to this day still, if you equate his wealth to what we have today, he's still one of the richest person ever. But that was a bad thing too, because he spread so much richness around Africa. They say he broke the economy, but also he put Africa on the map. What happened when people know there's money? When they know there's gold and other resources, people from all over, people start saying, wait a minute, they got all that gold down there? That's when after Mansa Musa time, that when you got a lot of the Arab invasion, Muslim invasion, then along come the other neighbors, the Caucasians came in. So they found out because what he did. In fact, you see a lot of old maps, you see a picture of him at the bottom of a big gold coin. But let's listen to let's listen about Mansa Musa. He'll let you know another way that our people came from what you'll find in this book. Wait a minute, not one before I get ahead of myself. Now, in this book is another book. And this book too. Have you heard of this book, The Lost Tribe of Myth by Godbey H. Allen? He has a map. I know you've seen this map before. This map, you guys found this map. You can find it on I think what's the brother Dante's website. He has it on his website. But to find a bigger version, I had to go to another website. But this map shows all the areas in Africa where this is a Duke archaeologist, and he did a study about what these tribes are in Africa at this time. And all these red areas he's mapping, where he said there was Jewish customs, tradition, writing, stuff he found in these areas in Africa. But look where these areas are. Guys, this is the Kingdom of Mali. You can make it bigger. Jewish colonies. Judah, I think that says paganism, Judo-paganism. Jewish trades here, the Mali Jews, the Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim, Levite city. All this is up more toward Timbuktu area. All these areas, he traced some presence of Jewish people there from the dispersion of the people who migrated from those before during the 720 BC. Now, the reason why I want to show that is let's look at Mansa Musa's predecessor. Everybody know about Mansa Musa, but the reason Mansa Musa became, and yes, and Sister Georgetta said right, that area on the map is also known as Negro land.
Right.
Negro land. Why is it called Negro land? Because it's chock full of Israelite people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they said Negro is Spanish for black land, black people. But maybe everybody knows Mansa Musa.
They have heard of Mansa Musa, one of
very, very few people heard of his predecessor. Let's listen to his predecessor.
The richest men to have ever lived. The king of Mali who lined his path to Mecca with gold and put his kingdom on the map, literally.
Look at that Emma. You've seen some old map and you've seen that before. That's Mansa Musa.
Yes.
But have you heard about the one who made him king? Before Mansa Musa, there was Mansa Abu Bakr II. He was Mansa Musa's brother and king of the Mali Empire. So how did Musa become king? On his legendary journey from Mali to Mecca, Mansa Musa crossed paths with Damascene historian Shihab al-Umari and told him how the monarch who preceded me would not believe that it was impossible to discover the limits of the neighboring sea. He wished to know, he persisted in his plan. Mansa Abu Bakr II was an avid traveler and had roamed all around his vast empire before yearning to discover what lay beyond the Atlantic. So he called on engineers of the Lake Chad to build ships so he could launch a fleet across the ocean. He hired a crew of sailors, traders, builders, artists.
He hired a crew of sailors, traders, builders, and artists. Among that crew was some of our people.
Traders, builders, artists, warriors, and learned men, and supplied them with enough rations to last 2 years. He told them not to return until they reached the end of the ocean or until they had run out of food and water. But after a lone captain and only one of the ships from the 200 he had sent returned to Mali, claiming that the other ships had been pulled into a current and disappeared, Musa Abu Bakr II began to prepare a fleet once more.
Okay, 200 ships went first, and only one ship came back. The ship that came back said there was reported that the other one got pulled into a current. Now, later on, we found out what this current was. There's a current that flows from this. I wish you could see you can't see my arrow, but it's the slave coast of Africa. There's a current that flows there up to right to Central America.
Right.
The people you can get in there just drives you right up there. So that's what they caught that current, and many of them landed in the northern South America, Central America, where you see Mexico area, where you see the New Mex heads and all that stuff, and North America. But the 200 was enough. He wasn't through. He lost 199 ships. This is what he did next.
But this time, the brave and adventurous king decided to make the journey himself. In 1311, almost 200 years before Columbus set foot on American shores. Just as Mansa Musa's journey to Hajj was legendary, so was his brother's journey across the Atlantic. A great leader, Musa Abu Bakr II, traveled with his men on 1,000 ships.
1,000 ships.
And sent a further 1,000 ships with supplies, trade materials, crops, and animals. And of course gold, which was abundant in his kingdom. So did Musa Abu Bakr II arrive in the Americas? We may never know, but there are many signs that West African Muslims did. Some of the strongest evidence comes from the pen of Columbus himself, who wrote.
Now listen to this, guys.
Wrote in his journal that Native Americans confirmed black-skinned people had come from the southeast in boats, trading in gold-tipped spears. Not only were these spearheads described as guanine by Native Americans, which was the Mandinkan word for gold, the language of the Mali Empire, but chemical analysis of those spearheads found that the gold most likely originated from West Africa. Columbus and his son also found that Native Americans had handkerchiefs like those used in West Africa, and clothes similar to the Muslim Moors of Spain. Whether or not Musa Abu Bakr II himself made it to the lands beyond the Atlantic, we cannot deny that this courageous ruler of one of the richest and largest empires on earth gave up wealth and power in pursuit of knowledge and discovery. His determination to reach the Americas could very well mean that West Africa's relationship with the Americas should not begin with slavery, but with sailors, explorers, and kings.
Mic drop. So he took 2,000 ships to the Americas. 2,000 ships. And when he took them to Americas, that time he took a lot more of the same type of people. I'm putting this up here because this is the Mali area, and that's the same area where we say was Negro land, always in Timbuktu.
Mm-hmm.
And for those you want to know more about this, I had these two videos on my channel. You can go back and check them out. Blacks was in the Americas before Columbus. There's once another historians talk about the discoveries they found that's showing that there was a lot of blacks and traces of black people coming in this area before Columbus. In fact, the videos told you that Columbus himself wrote down in his diary that they found dark-skinned people, and that people said they traded with people came over in ships. What he did not say, Columbus brought interpreters who spoke Hebrew, not modern Hebrew, but ancient Hebrew.
Yes.
Because he heard about, and when I say ancient Hebrew, I'm talking about the original Hebrew, Paleo Hebrew. Mm-hmm. He heard about Hebrew people being here. This is the same reason why Adair came over. You see how this is all connecting?
Yes.
And see, that's funny. I found all this stuff different. I found out about Dr. Ivan van Sturtman. How do you pronounce his last name? Sturman?
Sturman.
Sterling. Yeah, yeah. I found about him before because I heard about one of his Stelima. I heard his document online and talk about the nose of the Sphinx and all that stuff. And the other one I found and that said the same thing. And another one I didn't archive, but he said it was another sign that said the same thing. But that guy wasn't serious, so I didn't put him up there. But it was showing so many traces that we had people who migrated here way before the boy Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1942. And it also put people that were migrated from the Assyrian dispersion that was in that area, because Professor Allen shows those tribes in the area on his map. So we have evidence to show that our people would bid on those ships that came over. So yes, there's some truth to us being here before Columbus and before the settlers came in, because we had people who knew how to build ships. And see, that's the thing, sis. They didn't think we knew how to build ships.
Well, first of all, they knew we were very highly intelligent. That's why they brought us here.
Exactly.
We knew agriculture, we knew math, we knew science. We were physicians. We knew the law. We had all these skills before we came here. Only thing we didn't understand was their language. We couldn't speak their language because we spoke Hebrew, which is why when they brought us here, and the people who were here were able to communicate.
And just like we point out the last month, when you go back to the writings of, I forgot the guy who wrote the how to evangelize the slave. He wrote where the slaves came from.
Correct.
He wrote that it came from Portland and Spain.
Mm-hmm. Correct. The first group that came.
You never guess who they're trying to call me.
Tell him to come on here. Where's he?
But
we're gonna blame him for everything. Blame him for everything. We're gonna blame him for the sound of the videos. Why I have to use two different devices to hear the video. It's all his fault.
Exactly. Yep. But and then look now I clicked out my. But when he said that, see, lost my train of thought. What were we talking about, sis?
We were talking about the education, how we were when we came here.
Oh yeah, because but see, now we got people here now are trying to say no, slave trade did not happen. We didn't come from Africa. They lied. It never happened, which we know that's not true.
Of course. Now I do believe this too. Also, before the flood happened, I do believe all this was one big mass and was all connected to Africa. I think all the continents were one big mass of land. But the main land of where we were was in the continent of Africa. And I do believe once the flood happened, it broke apart by the waters. They separated us.
All the continent were one.
Yes, I do believe that.
Well,
I believe the flood broke it apart. Well, which left some of us here, because remember now there was a scattering. There was several scattering of our people. Remember the scattering with Baal?
Well, yeah, to Baal, and that's there in the Mesopotamia. But if you look at that, even that itself tells you how people. Well, everybody came out of Africa anyway.
Yes, of course.
That's what I said when I went further. Everything came out of Africa anyway. And
that's right.
And to come out of Africa, they had to go everywhere, and to get everywhere, they had to walk.
Yes.
Or ride, but it was still on land, or sea.
Yes.
But a lot of people could have walked to. A lot of people feel Asia,
mm-hmm.
and then at the further part of Asia, you have Russia,
right?
In the further part of Russia, there's a piece of land that's close to Alaska.
Yes.
That in doing certain time, even after the separation of the continent, then this came from, and I forget if I remember that clip. What's the black gentleman? Neil deGrasse Tyson said
I don't
that
know.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
No, I don't know who him. I don't know him.
He stated that he believed that most of the original Africans that came across on that strait, but then after the ice age, they melted it and then the waters rose again. It was here,
right?
So there's a lot of theories how people got here, but
correct.
But talk about Israelites after the dispersion, after David, that time period, these spirits, these breadcrumbs that I found tells me how the back cave stone, this Decker stone, and I didn't show guys all the other areas that it showed that had our marking on it. And before we end, I'm gonna give you that, because there was a whole lot more evidence that they left behind that was ancient Hebrew, and they were trying to make sure that people know that they were here. Because this is a couple more. I'm gonna put them on slide first. This is in Ohio. For those of you in the Ohio area, this is called the Decalogue stone. You see that stuff right there on the screen?
Yes.
On the side here is Paleo Hebrew writing. I got another picture of it. You can see the writing.
Yes, clearly.
That's a Shah.
Tha.
Yep. So this is in Ohio. That's an area in Los Lunas, New Mexico. You see the stone right here? They found the Ten Commandments written on this stone.
Yes, I heard that. I've seen that.
Right here. There's the Ten Commandments written on this stone right here. Look at the language. Get a close look. Look at that. Look at that. Whoop, I'm gonna go back. That's a la. Ha. This is Paleo Hebrew.
Very much so.
Just like anybody else's handwriting, there's a different handwriting. So this is in New Mexico.
That's beautiful.
So here's another one. This is in Concasas Lake, Petroleum site. I'm gonna play a video on this one, but I want you to I'm gonna play a video on this because you got to see this for yourself. It's funny, they're gonna give interpretation of stone, but I'm gonna let you see what it says yourself. They can't tell the truth, but make sure I get the right one. Here we go. And then the silence with music playing, but here they'll be talking. Here we go.
America long before Columbus. They could be evidence that Jews came to America long before Columbus. Maybe they were clues left by members of the legendary lost tribes of Israel, Jewish tribes that went missing in 722 BC. I'm heading to the discovery site to see for myself. So, Ron, you have to tell me, how did you find these things?
I was building these roads through here and got out of the bulldozer and ran across. Just saw this over here on the side of the rocks.
This is not the first time I've seen evidence here in North America of early Hebrews coming here. I mean, I've looked at the Decalogue stone, the Bat Creek stone, the Tucson lead artifacts, and the Hanaki earthworks absolutely suggest that there were early Jews here in America long before Columbus. And we certainly weren't taught that in school, were we?
No, no. Here we are.
Wow.
What do you think of that?
Well, Ron, not only is it rugged out here, but it's remote. I mean, why would somebody come out here to carve a hoax or graffiti? I mean, nobody would see it. This whole panel is full of carvings, and up there too.
Your first glance at it says, what do you see?
It's just awesome. I see the calves.
Pictograph.
Pictograph.
It would be easy to assume these are Native American petroglyphs, but I don't think they are. I've never seen anything quite like this before. You see this dark surface on this rock? This developed over at least hundreds of years, probably thousands of years. You can actually see where some of the edges have spalled. You see how it's almost white, sort of a tan color? Well, that's what these would have looked like when they were first made. But they're dark. They're almost black, like the background rock that they're carved into. This is definitely not modern.
Wow.
This is my handheld portable microscope. And you can see how dark that is. You know, another thing that jumps out at me right away that I'm sure you guys have noticed, that they didn't take a hammer and chisel. This was carved with rocks. And they used a pecking technique. Can you see that?
It's like it's pitted.
I saw something on the way in that could help us put a date on these carvings. It's the sort of thing many people frown upon. But as a geologist, I can find some value in it. It's graffiti. Let's go take a look at this other site. Aha. That's what I wanted to show you. You can see that this is fresh looking. It's carved into the same dark surface. This one's dated 1892. It looks like it was carved yesterday. Some other carvings here, 1925, 1924, 1919, and they all look fresh. I mean, this is just a quick and dirty comparison, but you can see this looks a lot different than what we have back there. It's pretty dramatic, isn't it?
And I wish I let it play a little bit more, because it goes to the end where they gave an interpretation of what one of the stones was saying. They said they sent it to a rabbi, and they said the blackened unto the sun, crying out for help.
Wow.
And when they said that was blackened into the sun, crying out to help, they said that it might be.
Is that who I think it is?
Yeah, it is. They said it might be. There might
Is he
be.
doing hand puppets or something? What's he doing?
I was setting up. But he said there might be. They said when he said black in the sun, he said there might be because there was a lot of sun out here and they was hiding in these cliffs. No. Black and under the sun mean what? Are you still there, Sister Carol? Black and under the sun, guys. What do you think black and under the sun means?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Black and under the sun, guys. What do you think black and under the sun? Yeah. Black and under the sun, guys. What do you think black and under the sun? Yeah. They were describing who they were. I'm gonna see. We got another guest coming on. Are you there, Pastor?
Hey, how's it going, man? I just saw your link, literally.
Something told me to give it to you on the private one.
Yeah, I just saw your link. I was thinking that you was gonna because actually I called you. I didn't know you was going live. I was gonna call you about a discussion that we had last night, but
Yeah, and we still got to do that one too.
yeah,
The,
yeah,
the color.
and
But I went on. I had this already put together with the the Back Creek Stone, and I took the breadcrumb you gave me of reading, looking at James Adair work, and how I put all these things together. Also, we went back to and then this is a good just to go back and reiterate all the stuff we went over, because we went to the Back Creek Stone. It was definitely Paleo Hebrew.
Correct.
oh yeah, definitely.
And then we went to some of the other stones, like the Deca stone in the New Mexico, which the Ten Commandments were there, definitely Paleo Hebrew. And what we just showed on this one, was more of a would you say
Pictogram. A pictogram. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't see what it showed it.
You in it? It's graffiti. Let's go take a look at this.
Really,
I'm sure you guys.
Because it showed the.
This is definitely not modern.
It did the wave. It did a cow. It did some other pictogram markers on that, but it showed that.
When you look at I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, when you like when you say the wave and you see the waves, that's where you get into when you look at the Hebraic pictographs. The waves is the Mayan. That's the water. That's the Hebrew letter Mayan, which means transition.
And that's what it shows, that number one. In fact, I was gonna pull that up, and they found that here. James Adair noted that they had that type of writing and some words in those tribes that he spent 40 years living with.
Yep.
That they had the same type of writing and words that were Hebrew.
Absolutely.
Now you can elaborate more. You know a little bit more about what his stuff he found.
I mean, he went off the culture, also circumcision, how they bury the dead, even how they celebrate. With the language, saying instead of saying Yahweh, they were saying Yehovah.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we already know that by that time, the languages was interpolated, but they were still saying Yehovah. And you know how we say Yahweh Shah, they were saying Yehovah Shah, Yehovah She, Yehovah Shu, as the son's name. So those are some of the other comparisons that you will see there. And James Adair was very astute in I believe they called it the antique Hebrew or whatever. At that time, and that was one of the things that really benefited him. But that's the one thing that many people don't talk about when it comes to him, that he was a linguist, and he mastered at that time ancient writings, as far as Hebraic writings.
He was a linguist. He was also an archaeologist, and he had a lot of other skills. In fact, the video I showed gave some background of him, showing how many people was citing him as being a very astute writer and knew what he was doing at the time.
Yeah, and when I was going through deciphering some of the pews, I, knowing his works, and I read his works, and studied it thoroughly. And he even have, excuse me, excuse me, a throat dry. He had a chart. He created a chart, kind of similar, like if you Googled a Paleo Hebrew chart.
Right.
He created a chart, and you can see some of the similar letters there, on some of the pews. I didn't go into the details of that aspect of it. I focused more on the not so far, the solitreo on there, but he did a very extensive study on that. Very extensive. Now, it didn't look like this is not the same, right? Let me see if I have it on.
Well, I pulled this up because what we were talking about is, other than all the different areas we saw Paleo-Hebrew, we saw the same letters that I'm showing here. Now, this is what was found. This was found under the city of Lachish. This was found under the city of Lachish. So, if they write in this, what they, I guess the person who was given the interview slipped and let some truth out, that the workers who dug those tunnels were writing to each other. So the common people were not speaking Greek; they were writing in Hebrew. So, and this is the same language you found here in the Americas. The people who was over here, that the people who was migrated from the Assyrian dispersion, they came down from northern Africa down to the Mali area and to Timbuktu, who happened to be a part of that migration that came over the ships with Mansa Musa's brother, his predecessor. They would have wrote in Hebrew, Paleo-Hebrew. So you can, and Sister Carol and I was talking about earlier before you came on about Adair did a study on the Cherokee tribe. Let me see if I pull it up. If it come up, yeah. They show all the tribes. But some of the tribes he did studies on, one of the ones they did not mention were, this is the Catawba tribe, because I had some other personal questions I had asked about that one. But one thing they did mention was the Seminole tribe. And you and I talked about that earlier, about how our people left Gullah Geechee area, South Carolina, escaped and went down and joined the Seminole tribe and fought in those wars down there.
Absolutely, absolutely, and they look just like us. That's the other part that you don't hear about. Where when you see the word Seminoles, you see the word cinnamon. I can't even say it. Cinnamon that's associated with it. What color is cinnamon? When you really go into the details of it,
right?
It's not going to be the what we see in our kitchen cabinets. It's going to be a lot darker. It's going to look, just when you see the color of it, you'll see that Seminoles. You also see, what is it called? What is it called? Cinnamon connects to the word more, right? Because I did a study on that like years ago, and I know when I was dealing with the Seminoles, their name Seminoles ties into cinnamon, and cinnamon connects to more. Let me cinnamore, something like that.
What is this? Muskego is a black town in Oklahoma.
Yes. The Trail of Tears.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. The Trail of Tears, yeah. But yeah, there was the deflation of, there were Indian tribes that had slaves, and there were also Indian tribes that allowed slaves to live with them.
Yes.
So we have a lot of that going on. So history has a lot of things that most people in the schools and everything is not telling the whole truth on.
And going back to that point I was just making real quick, if you pulled up the etymology, it was I couldn't remember off the top of my head. It was Seminole, and it connects to the word cimarron, and I would say cinnamon as well, but cimarron, and the root to that word is maroon.
Maroon, yeah. Oh yeah, maroon. You talking about Black Benjamin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you'll see the word, like Negro cimarron, or maroons tying into the Moors when you go to the fullness of that.
Thank you, brother, for giving us the correct pronunciation of that. And that's the funny thing about it. We finding these things out now because now we're looking, since the eyes open, you know what to look for. But like I said, I lived 20 years in the Catawba County area and knew anything about the Catawba Indians. Didn't know anything about Paleo Hebrew. But
well, you do know that down in your area is where James Adair, his family is rooted in your area.
In that area that I used to live in?
North Carolina, where you are now.
Yeah, I remember that it said in his book that's where some of the places he stayed and studied. See, I'm glad you got that up. Whoa! Now see now you see the top row up here.
Go ahead. I can't see what you're pointing to.
Okay. Now. It's on your Samaritan letter up there, the top row. After you see A to the very right, then you see like an F, then a letter right there.
Yeah,
that's one of the letters on that stone.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to pull this up here, because actually I was saying, and they call it the antique, or as you see, Antiqua Hebrew. And let me go to the other chart here that's in here. This is the other portion of that chart. And you'll see some of these letters on the pews. Down in Savannah, Georgia. Because part of the problem with when you, I'm just going back here to the main one that you zoom in. Part of the problem is we've been programmed to thinking that there's one set way or template to writing Hebrew. You know, like when we think about Hebrew, we've been programmed to think of the block letters, but we're not thinking about the Hebrew that the Israelites actually wrote. We're not thinking about, like you pointed out, in some of the stones there, some of the sites, the pictograph, as Sister Carol pointed out. Mm-hmm. So when I was doing the research on the Hebrew that's on the pews, right, I took in consideration that I know that there's not one set. It evolves, you know, it deviates as you go to different surroundings. Like just like what the way we pronounce our words. You're down southern part of the country than I am, so right. you're gonna pronounce your words a little different from me. You know,
just a little bit.
You may say, I may say water, right? You know, I'm just now using my actual Jersey accent. I may say water, right? And you may say what? How will you
water.
Say water? You say to me, you know, I may say car. You gonna say what?
Car.
But we still mean the same. And even
exactly.
And that's the point that I'm making is accents can be dependent on your geographical location. And that's what James Adair, one of the things that he was proving that, you know, even though, you know, they may have deviated a little bit from the main, I would say, like, let's just say the motherland. And George Clinton would say, what would we say? George Clinton would say the mothership, right? But the key is that, you know, it's still connected. And one of the things that people don't take in consideration, that there will be deviations, but doesn't mean that it's, you know, how can I put it? It's something brand new. It's a whole new form, or it's right. not connected.
Exactly.
Because there's still Shemitic people. Like we write the, you know, whatever, if we created a language right now, it'll still be considered Shemitic because we're a Shemitic people.
And just like
the other point I'm making.
And, you know, just like the accent on the very words, if you know, my handwriting is different from your handwriting.
Exactly.
So where I write it, it's gonna look a little different.
Yeah, mine will look like chicken scratch. It'll look like a famous signature. You know what I mean? But as you can see on the chart there, you'll see some of the similar writings on some of the sites, and that was the point of bringing this up. And like I said, you'll see that these are the things that he was pointing out when he went to different communities, because he extended from South Carolina all the way to like Alabama, Louisiana area, and all the way down to Florida. He was in Tennessee. I mean, he did a lot of, he was just really thorough with his research.
Can you blow that up a little bit more?
Let's see here.
And top line to the very right, I think from the line, the third one, that right there. Let it stay right here. I'm going to add this because I want you to tell me what you see. As we break down the Back Creek stone, you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's the very same mark. I'm going to go back to yours. Take that down. That same mark right there. You got it. Wants to look like L's right here, but they're right next to it. The same mark is in the front.
Yeah.
Which here is saying there's a I, right?
Yeah.
And let's see. Add it back. In front of it, they interpret that to be part of a qua. Let me see. Do you have what you have? You see what I'm talking about? The very first one on this right here.
Yeah. Yeah. The qua.
See, you have anything on your chart? Is it on your chart?
Well, if you go down to where it says the V row.
Okay. Yep.
You'll see, similarities.
Okay. Right. You can use your mouse, so I can't use my. I'm trying to use my mouse. I've got it on yours. I see what you're talking about, though. So everybody can follow along with us. I'm gonna put it.
For those that are watching, let's just say, for example, the first line, the A, or in the ancient Hebrew, Allah. When you see those different types of writings there, that is just giving you variants of how that letter was written, right? So that's why you see different variants there. So likewise, let's just say when I did the studies on Solar Trail, the professor, he was giving you just like a basic how to write certain letters, but he would go on and show you different variants of it depending on different regions. But that's not saying that there could not be additional variants of it, because he's just going off of the top regions that he's familiar with. So of course, when you take into consideration our ancestors being on those slave ships, and even during slavery, it was forbidden for slaves to be able to read and write.
Right.
So they had to write it in a way that it didn't look like it was actual writings. It looked like some would call it chicken scratch, scribble, when they actually understood what they were writing. And so taking all of that into consideration, that's how, I was able to decipher that and decipher some, other codes, even just programming language, that's getting into Sister Carol arena too, right? Sister Carol.
That's right.
Right. But that's just when you start looking at the from right to left, that is just giving you variants of different regions of how they wrote the letter.
And also that this language is a Semitic language.
Exactly.
Correct.
And Semitic language is a Afro-Asiatic language.
That's right.
But
So how?
unfortunately, you would never see this connected to the common chart.
Right.
Because if you go to the common chart, you'll never see this pulled up. But because of me studying James Adair and thoroughly seeing that he's really skilled from the linguistic side, I was able to come across this chart that he developed. He created this chart.
Oh, okay. That's where you got it from.
Yeah, I didn't create this chart. James Adair created this chart.
But it was being part of an Afro-Asiatic language. How do we now can say that the Hebrew that we see now is ancient Hebrew because it's not Afro-Asiatic? It's Germanic.
Yeah, and that's what the 1948ers kind of inserted some of the confusion, because when you think of Shemitic, right? Initially, the word Shemitic was used for language groups. So that's why you would see Canaanites, right, being listed under Shemitic languages, or Shem, when you look up in what is that, the Zondervan Bible Dictionary.
Right.
You'll see under the Shemitic languages, you'll see Canaanites.
But that's the funny thing, how they try to confuse us with languages. Like they post data language.
Yeah.
Because all the stuff we're finding, like the what I showed you earlier from the Lakesh underneath the comment, that's Paleo Hebrew. What they're finding here, this Paleo Hebrew. This is all ancient language. We're not finding what you find modern Hebrew. We're finding this.
Absolutely. And see that letter below it, right? You know, because you see at the top that looks like the Lamad.
You can right here.
Looks like the Ha, but that also can be passed for the Samak. There you go. You have it up to the side. Yep.
And that's what. But the geology was saying that there was some type of cross. I forgot what name cross it was. But you can see where the person who was either doing it started the third line
That's
right here.
But say you see that that's where I was looking at that third
yeah
right there, and you can see that that's not, you know, that's not a cross.
Right. But if you're seeing it with Hebrew eyes, you know what you're looking at. That's the point. If you're a person who's speaking Hebrew or new Paleo Hebrew, they say, "Oh, that's a Sa."
Yeah.
A Sama.
Yeah.
And like if you saw the other sites, this is the stone in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And that is called that particular Hebrew is like a, what is it called? Like it starts with a D, a Decalogue or whatever.
Decalogue is Decalogue stone.
Yeah, but the Hebrew Decalogue, that's where you get that's why they call it the Decalogue. So that's another form of Hebrew writings.
And this is the stone. This is the another the Los Lunas Decalogue stone in New Mexico, where they have the Ten Commandments written on. And some letters you can make out plainly.
Yep.
Even like reading somebody else's handwriting, you know, you still see English, but the handwriting might be, like you said, chicken scratch, but you have to look and make it out, but you can make it out.
Because like even like the third line from your left, right, go down, you see the Allah. It looked like Allah, and I can't tell what the two letters there. Like
right here.
Come down. Come down more.
One more. Right.
Come down one more. Right there, the Allah, the Lama next to it, the Ha, that's Allah. You see the Kop at the end.
Kop right here.
You can't tell the letter that's in the middle there, but because it's kind of small on my end, but you see Allah, you see Allah.
But apparently this has been already interpreted to be is the list of the 10 Commandments that's on the stone. Somebody wrote it on down the stone, and I said, the very fact that they use Paleo Hebrew.
Yeah.
I want to stop first and just give some thanks for those who are who's donated and thank you for your contribution, Emma Harden, and we also have. See, you got another one here. I'm sorry, I'm about to open up my app, but guys, we appreciate everything you do, being part of this. We appreciate being here, wanting to learn, because our people, we need to learn the truth about who we are, and so we can wake up a lot more of our people. Also, Michaela, thank you for your donation. Shalom. Those of you who are online, thank you for liking, thank you for sharing, thank you for reposting this so people will hear this, because there's a lot of discussion, like we said starting this, of people saying that the translated slave trade never happened. We were here, we're indigenous people. That's not true. Yes, there was some of us here, but this was meant to sort of help you connect some of the dots, us be able to explain to those people, hey, yeah, you're right. Some people were here, but this is what happened. Comments, Pastor?
No, you hit it on the nail. And one of the things that, to your point, that your point of emphasis is understanding why they placed that there. And that's part of when you're deciphering, writings. You're trying to understand the picture, the full picture. Why this particular stone? Why would they write the commandments on this particular stone? What's the logic behind it? What's the what was their approach? You know what I mean? Like, for example, like what I'll just use the pews. It's like, why that main pew that you come upstairs in that church in Savannah, Georgia, you see Israel's time. That's the first pew, and it's like, and I was able to decipher it. And it's like, wow, and when you start understanding the history behind it that surrounds it, being a major underground tunnel hub. So every person that comes upstairs, the first thing you're going to be told, and the message that's going to be given to you is that it's your time.
Exactly.
It's your appointed time. It's time to be free.
Correct. Redemption.
Exactly. So when you look at here, because of course they're going to read it and say, hey, it's the 10 Commandments, but what's the purpose behind it? Why this stone, they have this written here, but then when you go to the back 3 stones and some of the other locations, what is the purpose? What is the story behind it?
The interpretation on the Back Creek stone was for Judah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So why would unless you are a part of that, why would you say for Judah? The pictograph writing on the stone in the Concussion Lake writing was saying blackening the sun, crying out for help. But that area is sort of the trail that most of our people escaped through to head towards Mexico. So if they were in that area, they crying out for help, not because of the sun.
And a lot of it is contributed to, think about what was happening, because what happened in Florida caused a lot of our ancestors to be pushed from Florida and start making way past Louisiana, past Alabama, and many of them ended up landing in Oklahoma, in which many of them landed in Mexico, going further to Texas. You can't get to Oklahoma without going through Sister Carol neck of the woods in certain areas.
Right. That nigga was all over the place. That's a big nigga of wood.
But so the point is that a lot of that occurred when Fort Negro was sacked.
Mm-hmm.
And many of them, they don't give you the full history of it. They try to insinuate that they were all brought either killed or brought back into slavery. No, actually, most of them were free. They were told to go west.
Correct.
And that's,
And
I'm glad
so,
you mentioned
yeah.
that, Pastor, because then for those of you online, please look up Fort Negro. Learn a
And
little
so
bit about
that's
that because that's
how,
not part of our history.
yeah, and that's how my family, the heart of my family, as far as my grandmother, I mean, my great grandfather, and all those guys, that's how they ended up in Bancroft, Florida, living on a plantation, an Indian plantation, or Indian, whatever you want to call it.
Reservation, yeah.
Reservation, yeah. So, and my grandmother, she with her grandmother, you know, they getting up early in the morning, going to the fields and all of that. But was on the Indian reservation up until she was like 9 or 10 years old with her grandmother. So, but that's how that's the part of the history you don't hear about, because that's part of the suppressed history of what is called, they call it the Seminole Wars, when it actually is
Right.
called the Gullah, is really called the Gullah Wars.
Look it up, guys. Look it up.
And that's the longest war in the history of this country. It is
And
broken
the Gullah
down
Wars
into
started,
sections.
and it started a bit. It started after the Haitian rebellion, right?
Yeah, yeah. This is where you get to, what's his name, Ulysses S. Grant. At the time, he was a general.
Because the Haitian was so successful in taking over and taking back their country. One of the what was the number, 6 or 7 countries in the world who never been they wasn't colonized, because they fought and got it back.
I was thinking you was referring to the Haitians as far as in Georgia, because the Haitians in Georgia, they were young guys. They was like 12, 13 years old, being used as human shields.
Wow.
You know, back when Florida was Spanish Florida, right? And when the Brits was getting the best of them, of the militia from the colonies, they fled and left the Haitians behind. And they held it down. They kept Georgia from being sacked. Had Georgia been sacked, there would not be a Louisiana Purchase. And that's the part of the history that you don't hear about. And that's what kind of frustrates me when we deal with or hear the foundational Black Americans, because they don't talk about that history.
Because I didn't. That's new for me. You talking about the Haitian that fought in the war here to help out France.
No, to help out
Louisiana.
Well, they owned that purse at that time.
So by the Haitian helping Georgia from being taken, right? That allowed the colonies, as far as the army, to come back and also recover, because they fled. They left the Haitians, and these guys wasn't like they were, grown men. They were kids. That's the part they don't tell you about. And some of their statues is sitting right in front of the church down in Savannah, Georgia.
Okay, yeah, I remember that statue.
And one of them is called, his name is Christophe, which he was the first president of Haiti.
Wow.
And those guys were lied to. They never got any compensation.
Nope.
They were supposed to get military benefits. They were supposed to get their 40 acres and a mule. They got zilch.
To this day.
To this day.
So you're trying to tell me that America lied to people? What? Really?
So that, and going back to your point, these are the things like when you study about the Seminoles, and like I said, when you start getting into the titles, the white people of that time, they will purposely create names to try to discourage, right? To bring separation, like among the, let's just say, the Native Americans, so to speak. They'll create a name just to make it look like they are partnered with a community to start trying to attempt to cause infighting. But a lot of this history is erased, because the true original Emancipation Proclamation was the Spanish Florida, as
Mm.
far as the Negroes that was there.
And this is gone untold, and we don't know about it. And a lot of those, came from and came through South Carolina.
Came from South Carolina. Well, really coming all the way when you go all the way up to Virginia, as far as Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, because at one time they were one. They weren't split, as far as the Carolinas. But Tennessee, Kentucky. I mean, you could go as far as Kentucky, if I remember correctly. They have an Igbo pop group out there.
Right.
That you just don't hear about.
And that's my next trip. I'm gonna try to the migration, because most of the people who came into the ports, a lot came through the South Carolina port. Some came in. No, it started out in Virginia, but then most of them came down from South Carolina. Then they started dispersing from South Carolina all over to up to Virginia, then down to Mississippi once they opened up that area. And that's how most of us got where we are today. Then after slavery, we know how we went all over, because we got ran away from because of Jim Crow. But
in the three main ports, started with, of course, we know Virginia, and then of course South Carolina, and then also the sister port to South Carolina was Savannah, Georgia.
Exactly. That was the main port entries.
Yeah.
But man, that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to connect these dots to show our people how they were Israelite footprints here in the Americas. Now, we didn't touch, like I said, if you want to go on the footprints in the Central America, North, South America, go back to those videos I pointed you to. They came before Columbus. They're on my timeline, and the one with Dr. Ivan Van Sunema, he did a good job explaining how they came across the sea way before Columbus got here. So, and it's pointing to the same thing we just talked about Master Musa's predecessor. So, guys, it's there for us. We just don't know we didn't know what it looked, because people don't talk about it. But here you have the information. Please go back and find it. The link to this Back Creek Stone and the other finding is in the description of this video. You can go watch the whole video. And I hope this was something to open your eyes.
Yeah.
Before we leave out, any last comments, Pastor?
You hit it on the nail, man. You hit it on the nail. I know I came late. I didn't know you guys were going, so my apologies. Like I always say, fear ye not, stand still, see the salvation of Yahweh. These Egyptians that you see here today will not have power over you again. The Most High will fight for you, but we have to hold our peace. Can't go back, can't stay here, keep moving forward.
Amen.
Sister Carol?
I repeat ditto what Pastor Kelly just said. We've got to keep moving forward. And our history is everywhere. It's not just in one location. Our history is everywhere.
I think that's one of the main reasons they didn't want us reading, because we'll be able to find it, because they knew we had enough intelligence to find it.
And I think that's why this inscriptions was written everywhere, to remind us that they were there.
And that's going back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was we would call it today bookmarks.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And in the scripture, you'll see altars, but really it's reminders.
Yes.
Exactly.
Because wherever they built the altar, it told you the story of why they built the altar by them naming that territory.
Correct.
It's for the people who come behind them would know what happened there, and they'll know and to be able to read the signs.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
The next generation.
And before I say you said your famous quote that brought me to mind, how we are being so indoctrinated. We talked about this last night, and the mind wipe that happened every year. What is the movie that comes on every year this time?
Good old 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every year this time you see Charleston Heston, Charleston Heston.
Yep.
To show you who we did not look like. And it popped up, and we were going back. Me and my wife looked at it and said, "Look at that! I forgot about this." Because every year since I was a little boy, it's me and my son. This is how I saw Israel.
And he was a converted Jew. I learned that today.
Charleston Heston?
Yes. And just about everybody in that cast were converted Jews.
But it's done intentional. They play it yearly.
Of course they did. Yep.
Yearly.
Yeah.
And we all watched it.
Yeah. Keep their story, keep their version of the story. So you'll see them. So, all right, just want to say that. Guys, thank you for coming. Thank you for being part of what this live. I hope that you have a great week coming. I pray that y'all bless you, keep you, and make his face shine upon you. Shalom.
Shalom.
What do you think about this topic? Remember to be a Berean scholar. As it is written in the book of Acts 17 verses 11 to 12. Now the Bereans were more noble-minded than the Thessalonians, for they received the message with great eagerness and examined the scriptures every day to see if these teachings were true. It's time to deepen your understanding and see your reflection within the sacred pages. Please click subscribe, and click the notification bell to stay up to date with the Berean Scholar channel.